Hey y'all, it's Anna V, and you, my friend, are listening to the All American Wing Shooting Podcast. I am a hunter, conservationist, mom of 2 girls I have raised in the outdoors, and a proud owner of a truck full of dogs. My passion is guiding you to confidence, sharing in tradition, and celebrating the true meaning of success in the field. Here we go. We are back for another episode of All American Wing Shooting Podcast and my favorite soapbox of all time. Nothing better than talking gun dogs. And today we get Chris with American Field Magazine, which is part of UKC, and we get to talk about all kinds of dogs today. And I'm just so thrilled to have you on. We have gone back and forth what feels like a year talking about the publication, coming back, and the involvement of UKC and everything we love. So welcome, Chris, to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks very much. Good to see you.
You too. Okay, so you just told me that you got a promo, so you're going to be here for a while. We're excited to put a face with the publication, and I will say that UKC has been super important to me because when I first started running UFTA way back 2017, I guess, or 2016, when I first started running gun dogs, I met Todd because that was when UKC became an option for a title along with AKC. So what UKC did was legendary because they recognized gun dogs. So for me, it was like winning a lottery ticket and getting to meet Todd, who is the CEO. Is that right?
Yeah, Todd's one of our vice presidents. Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yep.
A
Yep.
long time ago, and he and I have continued to be friends along my great journey with gun dogs. So I'm thrilled to have you talk a little bit about UKC and educate people of the importance of that in our world, and then how you guys have grown to showcase our favorite gun dogs.
Yeah, thanks so much. There is a lot to unpack there, and the history goes back. I want to say UKC, the United Kennel Club, started in 1898, so over 125 years. Similar. A lot of folks know about the American Kennel Club, AKC. We're in the same business. It's about dogs that perform and conform. We have these standards. We want to keep those. They were bred intentionally for these certain purposes. So we focus again on that lineage, those pedigrees. And with UKC, we do a lot, as you know, with like performance in the field. We've got our pointing dog games, our hunting retriever club. We've got competitions for coonhounds and beagles, squirrel dogs. And then on the other side of the office is our all breed sports. So agility, dock jumping, nose work, weight pull, the bench shows. We believe in those dogs that do it all. So we really try to showcase their ability in the field performing, and then as well on the bench too. They look the part, play the part, and that's sort of what we're all about. Dogs that do more, and we really focus on those community events. It's certainly competitive in some regards, but really just getting out there and enjoying our lives with our dogs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the favorite conversation. Everybody is like, my dog's the best.
They're not wrong.
They're
Yeah.
not wrong, right? And at
Yeah.
any given day, their gun dog can win. I
hmm
know that this has been a soapbox of mine, and why I love what you're doing and you being such a voice in the industry and celebrating not just the dogs, but the breeders that have invested into, like you said, conformation, like proper conformation, drive, huntability, those things that are so important because it feels like the world has watered down dog breeding. And I'm not very popular for talking about it, but because of my background and getting the opportunity to run amazing dogs that necessarily weren't always mine, I saw firsthand what people are investing, not just their time, but money. I mean, time is huge when you're saying, hey, it's going to take generations of dogs to get my dream accomplished.
Sure.
And so maybe not too many people know because your publication is so beautiful and thought out and really targeted to not just the content, but also entertaining and keeping people engaged. The original publication was just like a newspaper.
That's right. American Field as a brand, I would say, it has its origins 151 years ago, back in 1874, when America had its first pointing dog field trial outside of Memphis, Tennessee. A lot of people are familiar, Bird Dog Museum, sort of Grand Junction. That area was like ground zero, and after that first trial, you have to report on it. You got to talk about the braces and the runnings, the dogs. You got to keep track of those lineages. So that spurred the Field Dog Stud Book, which was sort of synonymous with the American Field. And it sort of traded hands, had a few different names, landed in Chicago, Illinois, where it remained until 2021. Yeah, like field trial reports, the stud dog ads, the old, gun and ammo ads. And I've got some old copies from like pre-1900. Tabloid size, 11 by 17, came out weekly. So we must have done a ton of reading back then, and I don't know how they got that information. Typewriter, handwritten letters. Oh my goodness, incredible. And what's really cool too is by the 1880s, it really became sort of like a sportsman's publication. They had hunting stories, fishing stories, trap shooting leagues, and just all different types of things that you would do in the outdoors. And so, fast forward, UKC.
Because for me, I just remember it the content, like the copy itself.
Mm,
People studied the
mm-hmm,
genealogy of the dogs that were on top. And it was one of those, it was kind of, I don't know, like you can equate it to maybe like NASCAR.
yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
in the bird dog world, it was like, okay, who's running on top, whose points are here, and it was
Yeah.
like updates. And so
Yeah.
our publications today look so different. And it's like people's priorities have really shifted. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love that you're bringing that back, like the I guess the tradition of the dog itself and
Yeah.
what it took to get to where it is.
And a couple things too, like you mentioned, like that field trial reporting, the weather and the brace mates and like how it played out, everything, like all those little details, the folks that study these, they're tracking those dogs and they want to see, who's heading to the Hall of Fame and, who they want to breed to, things like that. It's a very different style of writing and consuming content. And, truth be told, when UKC took over the American Field, it was a brand. And it was a package deal that we've, moved over. Like the pointing dog game is into our hunting operations, and what used to be the weekly American Field is now called UKC Field. That's a monthly publication, so it has the trial reports, upcoming events. Folks in those games can still get those reports and do that. The Field Dog Stud Book came over to UKC, and we call it a dual privilege registry, where whether, like, as if you had certain breeds or were part of a certain club, you couldn't compete in certain places. But, we've opened that door. So now if you're on UKC or FDSB side, you can sort of compete both ways. I know, like, the French Brittany's, the Epinal Bretons, I think there was some other breeds that this really opened up a lot more for them. So we're continuing that legacy with the UKC Field. However, the American Field is sort of like, 2.0 now, where not just pointing dogs, but we're talking about retrievers, hounds, beagles, like all sorts of other types of dogs, and focus again on that sporting lifestyle. So we've got guns and shooting, conservation, wild game cooking. I've got a dedicated field trial section too to sort of preserve that legacy. And, we're getting back into art and humor and poetry and just like lyrical and artistic works, like paying homage to our history and just, there's still a demand for high quality content. We've got a larger trim size, like photocentric, like this immersive experience that, far from a magazine, it's a little different, but we're seeing that people still like their print, and we've created this product, new quarterly issues and 100 pages, tons of content, and we're excited. We're just getting back out there, so looking forward to it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm checking the mailbox today to see if mine's here. I'm so excited. I think this will be my new obsession. I keep every magazine. I
Mm.
look like an antique grandma kind of junk store slash lodge, even though it's not like we don't hunt here. I've done training, a lot of training here, but it feels like that when you come in. And I love that. I love coming home to all the old things that inspire me to continue to do my job, right? Because it never feels like a job. And your publication kind of encompasses all that. Is there's nothing like opening a book to me. And we've gotten to where we're so reliant on social media in our phones, and that's a special place to keep us connected. But I love that you guys are keeping all of these old traditions alive that I studied, and I never even really knew the point, like the pointer side, the English pointer side of things. But there was a reverence, I think, in that publication that you just wanted to feel included.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, very much so. It is just like long history. And I think a lot of people sort of got their start from that, following dogs. And, you would see it at camp, or, you'd go visit grandpa or your uncle, and you'd see the American field there. And it's been really cool to see the interest and again, sort of this, like, we're now kind of introducing American Field to a lot of those dog owners outside of bird dogs, the houndsmen, the beaglers, retriever owners, and we're sort of bringing that community together in a very unique way. And I think it's just so great the way that it's very much of like the ethos of the UKC, where we're community focused, family friendly, we can be a little competitive and, that way, but, again, we're about preserving the lineage and the capabilities of these dogs, like putting titles on them. And like you said, you show up to an event, you look at a dog, that could be just like generations in the making of like that dog's bloodlines, the family history. It's like that living history. It's so neat. You can almost like put your hand on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so years ago, a writer, gosh, what is it? Something in cornbread.
Oh, Larry Case, Guns and Cornbread?
Yes, guns
Yeah.
and cornbread. Yes. Okay, so Larry took me to West Virginia because I was the shotgunner. Right? I came and I didn't get into this until my mid 30s. Gosh, I'm
Okay.
really aging myself. So, I grew up in a hunting family, but nobody had bird dogs. And when I got my first one, I was like, forget everything else. I only want to do dog games. And so I became obsessed with it. And he and I traveled some together. And he's a riot. I mean, he is just a funny guy. So he's like, girl, you got to come up to West Virginia. Let me show you what dogs are really about. So we went on a bear hunt. And I was like, if I didn't have bird dogs, I would have, which I had a Toyota when I turned 16. And I also had a red bone hound in high school named Honeybell. And so I was like, man, I would have a truck full of walkers and I would have my CB. And this was so much fun. And it was so much fun. So now, I spent the last few years really just doing wing shooting things, but I have an opportunity to branch out a little bit. And I think the only thing I want to do is chase cats and bears because of the dogs.
I love that, and that's what I'm finding. Just like being in UKC world, and especially with this new American Field publication, and a lot of times again we pick our sort of corner. We're a bird dogger, we're a beagle, or whatever it is. But now we are creating this community to showcase everything together. And you might not fill your kennel full of everything. Gosh, no one can do that.
Right.
But we've all got friends that have these different interests, and we can share, we can invite each other. I look around, it's like, what do you have access to? If you're in southern Georgia, or if you're in, upstate New York or wherever, it's like you may not have access to these things, but now we do. We have the social media, we have our communities here. So I'm excited to see too what, it wasn't like necessarily an intended benefit of like, certain groups of dog hunters, the houndsmen, are really like on the chopping block and under like political scrutiny of like creating this awareness, hey, our brothers and sisters out west are facing these issues, deer dogging, hog dogging, some of these like traditional American pursuits are under threat. And if we can sort of speak to the truth of it, help to sort of advocate for one another, gosh, I think we're all just going to be better off. And, we talk about this, how they're coming for our bird dogs and our beagles. And, the anti-hunting animal rights movement really wants to see us out, what we love to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know that I've talked about that, lost my whole platform over that one conversation
Wow.
because it triggers the antis, right? So starting over and being so shadow banned on social media, I'm like, who the heck cares? I'm going to say exactly what I think. I'm not walking on eggshells anymore because there's nothing else they can take from me. And that's been my favorite topic to educate other people on, because when you get into the Ducks Unlimiteds or the Pheasants Forever, the Quail Forever, we really don't talk about that advocacy. It's really all about habitat, and we need it all. And I'm always sharing, things from SCI to talk about the advocacy part, because without that, we really lose everything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was like yesterday was Earth Day. We celebrated that, and it's great to have an awareness and appreciate it. And, I thought about, what can our message at American Field be? And it's like, well, hey, if we're not out there, boots on the ground, being advocates and doing this work, we have no purpose for these dogs. We need the places, we need the habitat, we need the game species. It's a big equation, and we are
Yeah,
part of that.
yeah.
It does, absolutely. And like you said, there's groups like SCI, I like the Sportsman's Alliance. There's smaller local, regional, state-based that are doing that work. They're in the state houses, they're lobbying, TRCP, backcountry, like there's a lot of groups. And, I try to be a part of all of them. I've got too many magazine subscriptions and memberships and that, but hey, you know what? My annual due is, I hope, helps in some way, and being part of it, because again, like together we can sort of amplify one another's voices and just keep working for this. So
Yeah, and that's my whole thing is I love the banquets. Like I love the
mm,
conservation groups and the banquets, and it's just so much fun. But I try to encourage people, like, not only get involved in that, but for every one of those that you're involved in, find an advocacy group to support as well, because you're going to get so much out of it that we can't even put into words.
and I love what you do too, especially with like the mentorship and like wing shooting, or maybe it's dogs, or like the cooking element. Like we have all of these entry points to bring like newcomers into our fold. And again, not everybody likes the shooting or the killing. It's part of what we do. But, we also need, wild game food enthusiasts, and we need, mentors, and we need all these different parts and pieces. So it's great that we can have these events, these opportunities. My wife loves coming to the fundraisers, the banquets, and, volunteer outings, cutting brush and doing different things like that. So it's a place for everything. Hmm.
It really is. There really is a place for everybody. And I just did a podcast last week, and I've only posted some of it, where I met a complete stranger on a social media, like a girls group that's not mine. And she just said, "Hey, I live in North Texas. I want to just make connection," because she's at that age, like maybe just turning 30, where she's a new mom. She's getting out of that influencer, cool kid posting kind of life, and realizing like this is a serious conversation. And I want to make sure that this lifestyle is here for my child and for my child's child. Once you have your first, I think your perspective changes, right? And I reached out to her, and then we podcasted. I said, okay, I've never had just a complete and utter stranger with no referral or anything on my podcast, but I love your message. I love that you were so vulnerable in posting and saying, like, I need mom friends in the outdoors that wants to raise their kids in the same um, lifestyle and principles and all the things. And so on the podcast, I asked her, I was like, so what was the feedback that you got from posting that? Because I felt like it was really brave of you to do that. Most women at that age wants to have it all together, right? And she said that she got like 20 messages. Most of them were comments on her post. There were 3 direct messages, which I feel is really like the next step of building a relationship. And I was one of those 3. And so our conversation was so good. I was like, okay, we got to record this because I think the world needs to see how important like social media is, and then how to take, or the influences of the industry, see how important social media is, and then how to take that to the next level. We're always talking about getting women and kids involved in the industry. But how does that work? Because I was talking to her, like, women, they are the fastest growing demographic of getting into the industry, but they're also the fastest to fall off because where do they fit? You know that the majority of the people that you work with are males. I
Yeah.
can't say anything about it because I've had the most amazing mentors. Larry, a great example. I still can pick up the phone and call him today and want to go do something wild and crazy. He knows somebody. Um, so I feel bad for a lot of the women that don't feel like they fit in.
You raise a really good point, Anna. Like we preach, all of us, the R3 movement and recruitment, and oh, get the kids, get the women, this and that. But like you said, what's the next step?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have somebody have a great first experience, but they have no means of following through, I mean, it's there's a lot more to be done. So I think like what you're doing and what we're doing here is like we're putting our money where our mouth is. Like we are creating opportunities. Like talking about Todd, we just finished up an article that's going to be in our summer issue, and it's profiling like our elite shed dog series and the women. Like this is. Of our sports, it has the most participation from the female audience. And it's just like, it wasn't intended, but it was just like you look around, it's like, oh my gosh, you can't, without hesitation, this is it. And it's just maybe the barrier to entry, or it's, the optics, whatever it might be.
Yeah, let's
But
talk about that because
yeah, yeah.
everybody has their family dog that they love, right? We're talking within our world, our bubble.
Okay. Yep.
For a female to not have to shoot in front of anybody, not have
Hmm.
proper instruction, right, which holds them back.
Sure. Okay.
But they love the dog.
Hmm.
They're probably the sole provider for the dog at home, per se.
Many times. Sure. Sure.
And so for them to have that, that's an entryway, shed dogging, to getting into every single thing that you guys are promoting.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and not just that, but even, think about too, what I love about the Shed Dog series is it's non-breed specific. I mean, we have poodles, terriers, border collies, of course, your retrieving dogs, but like it's any breed, any dog, that wants to participate, that has a drive, and there's a working class, there's a champion class, so there's like, it's planted sheds in this competition, and they're timed, and they do a retrieve to hand, but there's a youth division, and again, tons of female participation there. And what's so cool is you might have maybe the father or the brother kind of get started, but like next year, mom, sister, kids, like the family's going, they're adding to their kennel of dogs. And I haven't personally been to a shed dog event, but oh my gosh, it's top of my list. Just
Well,
the
my friend,
enthusiasm.
he doesn't breed them, but he trained shed dogs in Wisconsin. Craig Anderson, Dirty
Okay.
Blue Kennels. Um, yeah, I mean, we bird dog together. I actually was fortunate enough to title one of his dogs at the BDC, and we talk all the time about bird dogging. And he said that that's even grown for him. I mean, I just had this conversation with him this week about how his shed dog world is growing. So let's talk about that, just in case somebody's listening. It's like, okay, that piques my interest. How do I get involved in shedding? I don't know that down south it's as big as it is in the Midwest, per se, but you can get involved. How, like, can the family use the same dog? Or how do they really get plugged in into the training side of getting their dog to retrieve to hand, right? Because we can do all types of breeds. Some dogs need to be what we would say force fetched, actually trained to retrieve, where the lab on the couch might just automatically do it.
Yeah. Of course, again, like the United Kennel Club and our website, we have a whole page dedicated to our hunting operations and specifically the Shed Dog series. So there you'll learn, what it is, like what's the scoring, what does it look like, what does an event look like. There's a calendar of events where you can find almost every weekend of the year, it seems like there's an event somewhere. Yes, mostly I would say focused on like the Midwest, some in towards like Pennsylvania and that region. But there's clubs I've seen from Washington, down south. They're all over. We are just in full transparency, not the only registry or competition circuit. There are some others. And, this doesn't even touch on wild shed hunting. Where, as long as there's like whitetail, we got moose here up in New England, dogs looking for moose paddles, your mule deer, your elks, any antlered animal, dogs will pick up on that. But, you can get started with us. We've got a YouTube page that talks about sort of like what the event looks like and different things like that. The biggest thing I can say, and again, would love to have you talk to Erin Kalpin, who is the writer of this story, because this was an assignment to her, and she just like got super interested, took her young girls on the back and went into the woods with her poodle pointers, went to one of the UKC events and is like, oh my gosh, just like totally interested. And she sort of did that, was just like inspired, and like anything that we do, like you just sort of make it happen. Like you put yourself out there. Like this other woman that you talked to is like, you got to kind of be vulnerable a bit. You got to be like ready for a challenge, and like that's super exciting. But I would say
how God just puts that right person.
Oh yeah.
They may only mentor you for a little while to get you going and then pass you on to someone else. But it's amazing how when you turn around and look a year later, how many friends that you make in the gun dog world, any kind, or the working dog world per se.
Yeah. Yeah.
It becomes second family.
Yeah, I love that. When I look back, it's like, it's great to be compensated for what we do, but I look at the friendships, the experiences, like, even social media, the things, people that I never would have talked to otherwise, and like even, going to Pheasant Fest and just like happen to find a buddy that's into squirrel dogs, and we had dinner and talked dogs, talked life, talked everything. The people we meet along the way is just, golly, if I could live off of that, I would every day.
Well, Michael Waddell does a huge squirrel dog event in Alabama.
Is that Squirrel Dog Classic?
Yeah, Larry
the
Case
one
was there too.
Yeah, Squirrel Master Classic. Yes, that's right.
I would love to do that. And my youngest, she would eat that up. This year has been the year of firsts for her. She's been shooting birds for a long time, planted birds, because we ran hunting tournaments, which is my favorite thing in the whole wide world. And that's been a very funny conversation as I work with companies that are outside the USA, to be like, you run planted birds and shoot them for money and for trophies. And I'm like, yes, and I can't get enough, and so it's amazing to kind of see that perspective too, of how the American hunter perceives bird dogging. That's been my thing. That's what launched this entire podcast, the All American Wing Shooting Podcast. Like the heart of the American hunter and what is so important to us, what makes us so unique. But anyways, like for Taterbug, she got to shoot her first turkey, and she's waited so long for these things to be like her turn. She actually called up her own turkey at 11 years old, and this year she got to actually run her dog and hunt at the same time. In the past, it's okay, you get to choose which one you want to do today. Do you want to be a shooter or do you want to be a handler? Because there's so much responsibility that goes into that level of responsibility in the field, right? So watching other hunters, making sure that the dogs are in a safe place and all that stuff. And so it's been really cool for her to come into her own, and I can see there's no stopping it. She shot her first deer this year. So, squirrel hunting is going to come next. I'm like, no more dogs, like only labs moving forward, because that is manageable for me at this point. Where at one point, we were traveling circus with our short hairs and labs, but we're going to have to make more friends with
that's it. Yeah.
dogs, because it's so fun. We try to do something every single weekend.
Yeah, yeah, and there is something to do. That's just it. And I would love to see, folks with versatile breeds or just different dogs that, hey, you can do more. There's these things to do in the off season. Off season is a misnomer, right? But there's
now it is. It used to be a real thing. It used to be a real thing. Like, what do you do? I remember when I first started, that was a big topic. what do you do with your dog in the off season? And it's like, there's no off season anymore. You just change games. So we're going to get back into hunt test because
Yep.
that's where our people are, and we love that.
Hmm.
So I'm with you. It's just so much fun. And I don't know that I can talk about it enough. Like when your dog is not the center of your family, but it's kind of the core thing that keeps your family together. You have those built relationships for life.
How wonderful is that, like in this era that we live in now, where it's, like you said, it's more of the family. There's not many dogs that just live out back. They sleep in our beds, they live in our homes, they travel with us, we build our lives around that. And now you can have, your spouses and your family and like everything be a part of it. How neat is that?
And it has made a difference in my life, I think, with my girls. It's like JC, my oldest, she wasn't hunting with us, but she's still hunting. She's 22. She lives in Atlanta. She works for the governor. You would think that's the age where she would break off of that hunting world. She was queen of DU at UGA and has done all the things, worked with them nationally with their collegiate program. And she kept that alive on her own. She's like, see, y'all, I'm going to South Georgia where the real hunt is,
Nice.
and it's so cool to see her like take it and run with it. And yeah, so that's been the whole thing. She doesn't really live a lifestyle to have a dog right now, but her boyfriend does, and she claims him. And I'm like, okay, I can't wait until y'all get jobs where we can actually spend time together again on the weekends. And it's something that maybe we don't get to spend that time with her, but it's still a constant conversation that keeps us connected.
Too, it's like we can have young people have these experiences and then like they're able to express themselves in their own along the way. It's like a lot of us, we start with like beagle hunting or waterfowl hunting, and we branch off into these different things. Life happens, we move away, we get to get exposed to these different types of things, and it's still just like focused around the dogs, focused on the outdoors. It's really neat. Yeah.
Well, Kemp is working on his last year, and he'll be out of the office. He'll have to go do a new thing, and so I've asked JC, like, what are you going to do? She'd always talked about lobbying, so maybe we'll have to get her in the gun dog world, cheering for us, working for us, making big changes since that's
Yeah.
the world she's raised in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great, especially again to, young people like learning about this tech world and, communications and like again, there's so many opportunities to be involved in the outdoor space in this industry. We're going to need somebody to fill the ranks after us, after we're gone, and to protect it for future generations. And so, I think we're heading in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, and having those kids that where it means something. It means something to their childhood. It's part of who they are, representing us. You cannot duplicate that passion with somebody that hasn't lived it.
Yeah, and that's it. Like we need people, like you said, that they're aware, that have an exposure to it, or even just somebody that can be like a little neutral, like in a conversation of, stop demonizing hunting and these hunting dogs and our lifestyle, things like that. Like, there's decision makers now that are so far separated from the outdoors, from nature, from wild landscapes and that, and it's such a disservice, for all of us. And public lands and wildlife and that, like that's for every American. That's for all of us to enjoy and to appreciate, and this recreation. We should be able to go out and do these things. So
I never heard what the outcome was, but I was in the conversations of hearing California waterfowl, which they do such an amazing job in California. I think that they get overlooked because of the negativity of California shine so bright. But they were using some pack money with a friend of mine who is I guess the head of the pack that raises money for waterfowl and for the hunting there. They've made drastic changes, even when California said that the 18-year-olds, if you were under 18, you couldn't shoot a firearm, remember? And then that eliminated all the trap shooting. And so he went in with California Waterfowl, and they made massive changes and got that reversed.
wow.
But I saw where they were hosting hunts for politicians that were antis. So they were saying, okay, we understand that you have a perspective because you don't have an experience to tie it to, right? You've been, like, we would like to say brainwashed, but but you've been brought up to a mindset of something that you really can't have a true opinion about because you've not had the experience. So they're offering first time hunting experiences for people that are like against us, that can't speak on both sides. Like, we as gun owners, gun advocates, have to be put in situations at times where we can't carry. And let's just talk about concealed carry, right? Most hunters conceal carry. Not all concealed carry people hunt, right? So we are put in the situation where we have to walk in their shoes. But the antis are never put in a situation where they have to walk in ours. And so it's like, how do we extend these opportunities to say, just come try it? And if you still hate it and you still want to fight against us, at least you've had the experience to understand why we do what we do. And I just thought that was so powerful. And nobody really talks about offering that opportunity because we're so on the defensive all the time that we don't necessarily open up camp to let them in on our secrets.
Let's use this as an invitation. I mean, it's not just California. I live in Vermont, and there's a lot of things happening up here against the houndsmen and coyote hounds and trapping and all this. And, the anti-movement is very articulate, very proactive. And, it's like we as hunters should be too, as individuals, as our groups, and create opportunities to get those legislators out, or even just like write them and tell them how much you love to hunt and fish and to be able to access public lands and to do these things, because they shouldn't only be hearing from you when it's on the chopping block, right? Like, they need to know, hey, we support you. Thanks for voting this way. We really love this or that. Like, I think we could do a little bit better of a job, to do that. And again, not to go to war with the antis, but, maybe to be more proactive. And, we've also got, I believe, a lot of people sort of neutral. Our friends, our neighbors, they don't hunt. They're not pro-hunting. They're not anti-hunting. It could go either way. But,
I heard that there was like 10% that were anti, 10% that were so pro, and then 80% in the middle
yeah,
that just didn't care. So
yeah, I
how do
believe
we
that.
get that 80%? That's what SCI preaches. It's like,
Oh, good.
how do we get that 80% to be like, maybe we're not actively doing it, but we sure want the chance if we decide to.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, just having that awareness, like that truthful information, like, I hunted with bird dogs and retrievers for years, and there's a lot of bear hounding up here in Vermont. And I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds brutal. These dogs killing bears. And I had to go on a hunt to just be enlightened. And, it's totally, oh yeah.
Take out the dogs.
Yeah, but it's totally fair chase. I mean, it's no different than any other type of hunting dog pursuit. And without being out there and seeing it, I would have not known.
Yeah.
So
I was enlightened too. I didn't think it would be that fun. And I'm forever grateful that Larry said, you will love this. You need to do this. Because it opened my eyes. Was like, it's so easy to get funnel or vision with the thing that you're doing. And it is so much fun, but we don't want to think about the negative side of things, right? And especially when you're in competition, you're focused on bettering your skill sets and your training and all this stuff. It's like adding something else to the list sometimes is just too much, but it's so important to have that balance of using the proactive actions that you have and incorporating the why.
Anybody who has dogs, anybody who's hunting has the opportunity to influence. And again, it might be your neighbor, a family member. I used to try to stay away from conversations, but now I'm like, hey, I would love to just talk to somebody, like, why I'm passionate about what it is, I've got photos on my wall here, and I'm not ashamed anymore. And it's like, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but, again, like, you don't need to be defensive. Like, try to educate, try to inform. Like, I don't try to swing somebody the other way. I'm not trying to convert anybody, change their belief systems, but it's like, hey, I just, you love knitting or running marathons. This is my thing.
Well, it's funny because with Tater Bug's first this year, her little bestie, her dad is a hunter, but their family doesn't per se hunt together. And it's been hilarious because Tater will be like, okay, well, now we have to have a cookout. Like she either brought home the pheasant or the quail or the deer. And it was so hilarious this last cookout that we had. Her little friend was like, seems like every cookout we have, it's because Tater shot something. And I'm like, when the fifth graders are talking like that, man, that is contagious.
There has been like a shift in culture. I mean, I hear stories, we used to drive to school with shotguns in the back of the truck, or, we carried it, we went hunting after work, this and that. We've lost that. And maybe not everywhere, maybe to some degrees, but it's like, hey, we shouldn't be ashamed of our way of life and protecting the things that we love to do. There might be some better ways to do it. And like I said, everybody who does this has some level of influence, at home in their own circle, on social media. And like, again, people are watching, so it's like, conduct yourself properly, but like look for those opportunities to talk to somebody, or invite somebody to come training or to come to a competition or to go out to a hunt. Like that's what I look forward to every year, is trying to get somebody new out there, trying to do a new thing, just continuing to just enlighten myself, learn more, and advocate for it. Yeah.
And I love that personal interaction. I think that's so much more important than the social media. Social media can be construed and taken any way, or somebody can they're going to accept that the way that they hear based on their opinion, right?
Sure. Okay.
So, talking about the flip side of all of this, we live north of Atlanta and we're in the country. So, the public schools that we go to still accept our lifestyle, right? And we're fortunate enough to get, if we want to take Tater out of school for a week and go hunting, we do, and we did that. We took a tour of Texas and shot everything, and it was so much fun. And I'm grateful to live in a community that does support learning outside of the classroom. But the flip side of that is I have a client, a shooting client. She's 14. She goes to school closer to the city in public school. And we were in a lesson, and I was like, so what do your friends think about you being this rock star shooter and stuff? She's like, they don't know. And I'm like, what
Uh,
do you mean? And she's like, I can't talk about it or people will think I'm a threat. And it blew my mind to have this kind of conversation with a 14-year-old girl. And she's she doesn't look like a threat at all. She's like drop dead gorgeous and, 6 foot tall and gonna be, this Barbie. And it was like, you're not like, we profile automatically if you say that, right? And I'm like, there's no way that somebody could say that about you. And it blew my mind. And still to this day, I can't wrap my mind around living in a community where I couldn't talk about the one thing that is like so important to everybody that lives in my house. It's like, we love our shooting sports and we love hunting, and we plan our entire life around doing these things together.
we got to protect it. We have to create those opportunities, and keep the kids going, and just keep the conversation going, and yeah, super important.
Well, I want to thank you because we hit it off from the beginning, but the things that you're doing, like, I literally celebrate. I get so excited when your posts come through my feed, and I probably should put notifications on there so that I see them, because the dog training and the breeding and all that was so important to me, because it's what I can contribute my success to. Is that I was so fortunate enough to be have access to amazing dogs. I could not have achieved what I achieved with just any dog that had come my way, and I know that. So I try to always showcase the importance of that planning, because there's a science with it. It's not just two great dogs make great dogs. That's just not the way that it works. And that's the message I think that's being shared today. So thank you for celebrating that and giving me something to really invest in your publication. And then the opportunities, like you talk about, all the working dogs are something to celebrate, and everybody's communities at the core of them are super strong. And so it's really cool to get to celebrate that and talk about it. And I don't know if there's enough days in the year to get to do it all, but I want to go on a proper coon hunt. I have a mounted coon in my house that I shot while we were, well, I'm not sure. I got it in Wisconsin, like while we were bird dogging, but it was in the evening, just taking dogs for a walk, and that was so cool. I'm like, man, if I could have done that with dogs, like who didn't read Where the Red Fern Grows? Like I had a red-bone hound, Honeybell, because of that book, you know,
Well,
and just all these things that come back to your childhood. It's crazy how it pricks your heart and builds character and it makes you who you are. I think
it's
that
a part of
the best.
Yeah, I love it. It's a part of American history. It's part of our many of our personal narratives, and it's great to see it continue. And we do. I mean, at UKC, at American Field, we're trying to usher this into the future and recruit the next generation and just celebrate our storied history, create opportunities for newcomers, and to sort of level the playing field too. I mean, I love that there's other publications, there's other brands. I mean, the outdoor industry is strong. It's growing, it's thriving, and that is good. If any one of us is doing good, we're all doing good. It's a good look, yeah.
I'm going to encourage everybody listening. Graduation is coming up, right? So all the kids that are graduating, people are like, oh, what do I get the graduate? Well, you could just give them cash, or you could give them a subscription to American Field Magazine. And so they remember as they go off to college and they're building their own life that they can stay connected to their roots, and then plan a trip with them. Like give them a hunting trip to say, hey, Christmas break, we're going whatever your thing is, whatever kind of hunting you do, like take 3 days to spend time with your graduate this year. I think that would be so incredible.
I love that because they're going to remember that more than anything else. Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That building character is way better than cash in the pocket.
Take that any day.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on and sharing about all the things. We will make sure that the links are posted in the notes for the podcast so that everybody can get to UKC, they can get to the American Film Magazine. And if you have any questions, he's always so active on the American Field Instagram. And then you can always reach out to me to get connected to him as well.
Thanks, McKenna.
Yes, anytime. Come back anytime.
All right.
The dawn's finally breaking as I leave this sleepy town. The sun is slowly rising and the fog is on the ground.